Hello, welcome to The Corner Table, a podcast about food and drink in Madison, produced by the Capital Times. Maybe your first experience drinking Beaujolais Nouveau was like insipid wine cola. Maybe you thought it was harsh. Maybe you thought it was thin. Maybe you were actually right about these things. But today, it's time to change your mind about Beaujolais. I'm your host, Cap Times food writer Lindsay Christians, and today on the podcast, Cork and Bottle partner and my friend Bob Hemauer comes into the studio with two very reasonably priced reds that are ideal for holiday celebrations. This is Beaujolais that is good enough for company, but not too good, if you know what I mean. This was the first wine I'd had of the 2017 vintage, and it was a really fun conversation. Bob, welcome.
Hey, Lindsay.
So what did you bring today?
Oh, we've got one of my favorites, Beaujolais.
So I feel like when I first learned about Beaujolais, I was working as a young wine shop employee at Barrique's on Monroe Street, and we got all of this Beaujolais Nouveau, and it was like this big Georges de Boeuf event, and we had like paper stuff to put up in the like papery plastic, whatever, streamers and things to put up in the store if we wanted to, which we didn't do a lot of that, but like you could, and it's supposed to be like this big festive thing, and I actually like tried the wine and I was like, okay. So is this Beaujolais like that Beaujolais? It's not, right?
Well, I did bring a Beaujolais Nouveau. And this conversation, the conversation we're having right now, is at the heart of the identity crisis for winemakers in Beaujolais, for quality winemakers in Beaujolais. Beaujolais Nouveau is actually a really great tradition. It's wine released from the current vintage. So right now they literally just released the 2017. And it's fun. It's designed to be fun. It's light in tannin. It's super quaffable. It's, we did talk previously about one of my favorite hashtags, CRDubs, chillable red wine. And totally chillable. And it's great for this time of year. All this traditional, kind of holiday meals, these lighter bodied red wines, a little bit lower in alcohol, allow you to celebrate longer. And they're really versatile with whatever might be on your holiday table, whether that's turkey or ham or lamb or like all these things and all the sides and everything that everyone brings. It's good before dinner. It's good after dinner. It's so I did bring a Beaujolais Nouveau because I think we need to reclaim it. I think we need to celebrate the high quality producers that put out this really kind of fun thing. A lot of more serious wine folks have poo-pooed it for years, but there are great producers making fun wines, and not everything needs to be serious. So we have the Nouveau, which is designed to be just kind of drunk and forgot about, but fun and celebratory. And then you have, kind of Beaujolais level appellation. And then you have the Cru. There are 10 Cru in Beaujolais, and those are generally where the higher quality wines come from.
And a Cru is just like an estate, or is it an area of? It's
an area. So in Beaujolais, the Crus are centered around villages like, Morgon, Moulin-Avant, or hills, Moulin-Avant, Juliana, Saint-Amour. There's a lot.
Like the range in the Beaujolais Cru, because I did a little drinking of them last fall, I think. I got really into them for a little while.
Yeah.
And I was noticing that like some of them can be really meaty and kind of like that kind of savoriness to them, but others are very floral. And you can get this huge range, but they're all kind of from the same grape. They're obviously from the same grape, but they're also from the same area.
Yeah.
Many of them from similar vintages. But you could have just this wide range of flavors within that.
Absolutely. And the grape that we're talking about is gamay. And really it takes on the characteristics of soil, and it takes on the characteristics of, the terroir, like the climate, this climate specific to where it's grown, the soil type. And then it also it depends on, how it's treated in the cellar. There's a lot of different philosophies in terms of winemaking in Beaujolais, and they can go from everyday kind of table wine to more serious things. And, they are really high quality wines. They're world-class wines that you can get for not a lot of money. And, in the 30s, we'll get you an amazing bottle of Beaujolais, Cru Beaujolais.
To really specifically apply this wine to holiday drinking and holiday celebrations, when I go home to Ohio to visit my wonderful family, my mom wants to know, how sweet or dry the wine is going to be. Those two things being on opposite ends of my mother's spectrum of wine drinking, right?
Yeah.
And I have always thought of Beaujolais as being one of those wonderful sort of fruity, usually, fairly high acid red wines that can be like okay for white wine drinkers too sometimes if they don't know if they like red at all, because it's not going to have a ton of tannin. It's not going to be super boozy. It's a little bit lighter on its feet. But like if you're going to try to describe these wines, the wines that you brought, the wines of Beaujolais to my mother, what are you going to tell her?
This is how I talk about Beaujolais to folks. It is a dry wine. There is not residual sugar. It is not a sweet wine. That said, it's not a drying wine. It is not a wine that will make your mouth dry because of the tannins. It's very light. It's very, fruity and round and playful. It's not this kind of brooding, heavy palate weight, wine. It's wine that's very friendly.
Those years ago when I first encountered Beaujolais Nouveau, I had some really bad Beaujolais Nouveau.
There's a ton of really bad Beaujolais Nouveau.
The thing that makes it bad is usually a harshness where it's almost like, it reminds me almost of like acetone. Like it's just, it can get really unpleasantly harsh. And also have no body at all. Yeah. And so I think those are a couple of the challenges. And you'll get that in like the $7 to $9 or $10 range of some of these Beaujolais. That said, there are Beaujolais where I would bring them home, and if my mom put, and not that she would do this, I'm sorry, Mom. If my mom put a cube of ice in her wine to chill it down or something, or wanted to mix it with Coca-Cola, which I've seen before.
Hey, don't knock a Calimocho.
I've heard that. I've actually had some Calimocho that's actually pretty good. I just don't want my really good wine.
Yeah, of course. Naturally.
Fantastic for camping, by the way. Always camp with wine. But there are wines like that I would bring home. Then I would say, okay, well, I would do a sangria with it or something else. But bad Beaujolais is around.
And frankly, when we talk about this identity crisis that Beaujolais had, there was a time period where these larger producers, like DeBoeuf, were not making particularly carefully made products. They were industrial products that were pumped out for cash. Thoughtfully made Beaujolais is amazing. Industrial Beaujolais is awful.
It's plonk.
Yeah, total plonk. And it's really it's sad and it's unfortunate because this is going to be the first wine I've consumed from 2017. In the Western, in the Northern Hemisphere, right? So that's kind of fun. And it's really easy to drink, which is super fun. The identity crisis there between the kind of industrial versus the more artisan producers is something that I think Beaujolais is going to have to grapple with for a while.
Well, let's give these wines a taste,
Let's
shall we?
do it. Lindsay, we're going to do it. I'm making you drink some Beaujolais Nouveau. So this is this is from Jean-Paul Brun. This is Terre Dorée. This is all old vine Beaujolais Nouveau. So this is 2017.
Oh my gosh.
I have not had this yet this year, and I am really, really excited
I just listened to my first Christmas song of the season.
Oh, nice.
So it's so appropriate.
Wait, which one?
It was Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You.
That's a pretty good one.
I have no regrets.
That's pretty good.
I stand in my truth.
I'm a Darlene Love guy myself, but that Mariah Carey track's pretty great. Wow, that is like the most charming fruit on the nose.
It is very aromatic. It's got like lovely red fruit.
Yeah, it's like cherry. It's like a cherry sucker.
Yeah. It's not, though. I feel like sometimes with Beaujolais I get like cola, and I'm not getting that really with this. Like it does have kind of a sweetness on the end, but.
Oh my, that's fantastic. I did good, Lindsay. This stuff is so fun.
So do they not put this in oak at all? It's not aged at all?
No, I think it's just like pressed and fermented and pretty much, bottled and shipped.
what I love about this wine is that it has those lovely cherry flavors, but the finish is so full. Like it's a lovely ruby color, but it's got that high acid. And I'm thinking about the things that you eat around the holidays, the richer foods. It's going to have the beautiful acid for that, but it's also not going to overpower anything.
It's true.
Like turkey is turkey.
Yeah.
So, no matter what you do to it, unless you like glaze it and fry it. I think this would go beautifully with all those things.
If your guests arrive and they want a glass of red wine, greeting them with it, they can take it, they can drink it before dinner, sit down with it, have it throughout with, the salad. It works with it all. And that's this time of year, it's really nice to have wines like that.
This is Jean-Paul Brun, you said, yes? B-R-U-N?
Yep.
I feel like he's one of the producers. It's one of Andrea at Square's favorites for the holidays. Yeah,
he is an amazing producer. Jean-Paul Brun is a leader in the natural wine movement, which basically means minimal intervention, right? Minimal intervention, organic practices in the vineyards, blah, 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 blah. The unfortunate thing about a lot of natural wines, in my experience, is that they can taste dirty. They have these off flavors that don't necessarily make the wine bad, but they make it challenging.
I've had issues also downtown, when I order, I've ordered natural wine more than once and get totally different wines. It's a consistency thing.
For sure.
Which isn't to say that I'm not going to drink natural wine. I think that it's a good thing to be drinking more of in general for reasons of sustainability and those kinds of things too. But there is an American value for consistency, and I am part of that culture in some ways.
That, and I also think okay, this is a wine that is in current release. If this is not a wine that I've been aging under questionable circumstances for years, I think there should be a reasonable expectation of knowing what you're able to get. There's a lot of true believers, really orthodox people who are no sulfur, no. I'm not a true believer in anything except for I like wine. That's the one thing that I truly believe.
I think maybe the only thing I truly believe is that everything in life can be applied in some way to musical theater.
I totally disagree with that statement, and yet we are friends. See, we're an example for, the body politic. We can have disagreements and still be friends.
Yeah, cheers to that.
But I think we can agree that this wine is pretty great.
Mm-hmm. I've been saying lit a lot lately.
Oh,
this wine is lit. What does this wine retail for?
This wine is $13.99. So we'll just go ahead and round that up to $14.
That is so much better than that price. I thought for sure you were going to say over 20.
No.
See, this is why it's good that you removed the price tags before, because I don't know how much this other one is either. And knowing how much something costs affects our perception of it.
It does.
It totally does.
All right, so we have the Raisin Gaulois from La Pierre. So this is La Pierre is based in Morgon, which is one of the 10 crus in Beaujolais. This is a seminal producer. This is an important producer. So when we're talking about that industrial Beaujolais, the switch to the more artisan method really happened in the early mid-'70s. And there was a core group of people. Jean-Paul Brun is kind of towards the later 70s with his first vintage, but the core group of people included Marcel Lapierre. He makes amazing wine. His flagship wine, the winery's most famous for, is their Morgon bottling. They're from the cru. This is his Vin de France. Well, actually, it's the winery's Vin de France. Marcel passed in 2010, and his son Matthew and his daughter Camille are in charge of the estate now. And it's a really great introduction to a more serious Beaujolais.
It looks darker a little bit than the Nouveau does. It's got a little bit more rim variation because this is a 2-year-old wine, which normally I don't think I would see a ton of it, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
This is really cool. So the fun thing, this has got a fun label too. It's got a little dude on it, and he's squeezing grapes onto his tongue, and it says, I'm going to pronounce it like I'm from Ohio. It says Raisins Gaulois. So
Raisin Gaulois, yeah.
Raisin Gaulois. That's my French.
I'm sure I'm wrong too.
The nose is immediately a lot, like it's bigger. The nose is sort of more pronounced.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more kind of like this gaminess. Their house style, the style of the winery at La Pierre, is one to really let the grapes ripen as long as possible. Gamay is a naturally lighter grape. These are cooler climates, so they really try to let the grapes hang on the vines and get as mature and ripe as possible. In terms of Beaujolais producers, it has a little bit more oomph. It's got a little bit more of that kind of meaty gaminess. I can spot these wines because they always have this kind of ferrous minerality, this kind of irony thing going on.
It still has a lot of that fruitiness, though. I feel
For sure.
like that long hang time is really kind of coming through in just how rich the fruit is.
Yeah.
It's also got a bit of a fuller body.
And these are just two different style of wines made from the same grape. So these are both 100% Gamay. It demonstrates the difference between winemaking styles and terroir and where it's from.
And this is just a Vin de France?
Mm-hmm. So most of the grapes that go into this wine are from Morgon, which is within Beaujolais, but some of them are from just outside the Beaujolais appellation. So when you mix them like that, you can't label it as Beaujolais.
French wine can be so challenging in that way because, normally if I see a Vin de France, it's sort of nebulous enough that you're like, you're not giving me enough information to make an informed decision.
For sure. And again, this goes back to talking to someone that you trust in a wine shop. That's generally a probably pretty safe bet. This wine is different, Some of the most interesting cool wines fall outside of the official government rules for being able to label something. And that doesn't mean they're any less. It just means that you need to know what you're looking at.
How much does this retail for?
$14.99.
What?
Yep.
Again, I was like,
so
okay,
$15.
Well.
Okay, I did it. I'm sorry. It's like the retail thing. It's $15. It's a $15 bottle of wine. It's important to me to have these interesting, fun wines and to demonstrate to people that you can really have a great experience and not spend a ton of money. If you want a glass of wine, you should be able to do it and not feel intimidated by the price or by how to pick it out.
Man, I want cases of these guys.
So
They're
good,
so good.
Right? So good.
This is going to be great for the holidays because this is my thing. I always want to drink well at these holiday gatherings, but I also need to bring something I'm not going to wince if somebody who doesn't care too much.
Yeah.
Sorry, people who don't care too much.
I think that's fine. And I think we're going to have a bunch of people over for Thanksgiving this year. I don't necessarily break out the $100 bottles of wine that I have in my basement. And part of that is not because I don't think anyone deserves it, but it's not the occasion for that. Those wines need to be contemplated, and I think when I open an expensive or a rare bottle of wine, I want to be able to think about that. At the holiday party, I don't want to be the dude talking about wine. I don't want to be like, oh no, everyone be quiet. We need to concentrate on this, 1971 Chianti Rufina I just opened.
This is like when Gabrielle Hamilton said that when dinner parties became about talking about the food instead of talking about everything else that was going on in your life and in the world, that it almost killed the dinner party for her.
Totally.
She's like, suddenly all we talk about is what we're eating or what we recently ate or what we're going to eat, and it was sort of crushing for her. And I thought, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah. Some of the people that I see around the holidays, we have friends coming in from Philadelphia, from Florida. These are people coming over to my house. I see them maybe twice a year. They're not in the wine business. They like good wine, but I like them more than I like talking about wine, and I really would rather catch up with them, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are great wines like these that totally fill that role.
Well, thank you for bringing them in.
Hey, my pleasure. Good to see you.
All right. Happy holidays.
All right. You too.
This has been The Corner Table, a podcast about food and drink in Madison produced by the Capital Times. Editing for the podcast is done by Eric Lawrenson, and our music was composed by Patrick Christians. Find details about the wines we talked about today, as well as food and drink news at captimes.com. You can subscribe to The Corner Table wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Facebook at Corner Table Podcast. I am your host, Cap Times food writer Lindsay Christians, and my wish for you this week is that your holiday parties be stocked with good wine and even better company. Cheers!